Hey moms, need some help with nutrition? Life is a juggling act, especially for busy moms. Between caring for kids, managing the household, and squeezing in some me time, your health often takes a back seat, but it doesn't have to be that way. Introducing our first sponsor, Nourished by Nini, your go-to nutrition macro coach. Featured on the Mom and Around podcast, Nini is a certified nutritionist and macro coach who specializes in helping busy moms achieve their goals without sacrificing the foods they love. With Nini's guidance, you can master your macros, learn how to balance proteins, fats, fibers, and carbs to boost your energy, blood sugar, and hormones. Effortless meal planning. Have access to easy, delicious, and family-friendly meal plans that fit seamlessly into your busy schedule. Personalized progress tracking. Stay motivated and on track with custom one-to-one coaching and support tailored just for you. Join the community of moms transforming their lives with Nini's expert advice. Tune into the Mom and Around podcast to hear real stories and practical tips on how you can start living a healthier, more balanced life today. Follow Nini at Nourished by Nini on Instagram for more information and daily inspiration. Because when moms nourish, the whole family thrives. Welcome to the Mom and Around podcast. This is a podcast made by a mom. That's me. I'm Liz Mercedes, your host. For moms, that's you. Today, I have a very special guest with us, Claire and Reese's mom, the founder of the Meeting Mama community for moms. It's Lauren Dragus. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on today.
I'm so excited.
Yes, I know we briefly spoke on Facebook, and I was kind of sad because I didn't get to do the meetup because I had that doctor's appointment. But I definitely have to come out for one of them. Do you want to just briefly talk about, since that's how I introduced you, the community and kind of the idea behind it and how it came about?
Yes, I would love to. So just over these past few months, I have launched Meeting Mama, which is a community based here in Georgetown for moms, but Georgetown and the surrounding areas.
Mhm.
It is to provide moms with community and connection, during those early postpartum days through, maybe even a couple months after they have, or a couple years after they have the baby.
Totally.
But I just want to help moms connect with one another and just find other people so that they don't feel alone, like they're going through this postpartum experience by themselves.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And as we were chatting, I kind of shared my story, but I feel like Austin and the greater Austin area is very much like a transient area where a lot of people are just kind of like here by themselves, no like big attachments or families. A lot of people come here for work or just for like something different. And so there's a lot of moms that are just kind of here by themselves.
So many people have moved from outside the Austin area. I mean, maybe half to 2/3 of the people that I've met, in and around Georgetown, new families that have moved from out of state or other cities. And I think that's like one of the reasons you connect with other people, because you have that similarity, but you're also looking for connection.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So you had your daughter, right?
Yeah.
Not in state. Where were you when you had your daughter?
So I had my daughter back in California.
Okay.
Just exactly 5 years ago. She turned 5 at the end of February.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. It's such a big number. 5 is such a big number. It's fun.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm like kindergarten, and pretty much you'll just be going to college next year.
Yeah.
That's how it feels.
And then you had Reese in Georgetown.
In Austin, yes, once we had moved. So when I got pregnant with Reese, we were in the talks of moving to Texas, and my husband changed jobs.
Mm-hmm.
We had been coming here for about the past 10 or so years because my brother and his wife have been here on and off. They were in Round Rock, then they went back for a stint in California and then came back, and they've been here for like 7 years now. So we had been to Georgetown a bunch. We really loved the community here. and just Austin in general, just like the vibrant, energy. And we decided we were ready for a change.
Yeah.
So when I had Reese, we had moved and I was about 8 months pregnant. But then, yeah, I had him here.
Did you have family in California when you had Claire?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, within like an hour or two.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, my mom's one of 4.
Okay.
And her whole family's in in that kind of same area. And then my husband's family was farther away, but, they'd come up and see us every 6 to 8 weeks and help out.
Yeah. And now with Reese afterwards, was that like a little bit of a shock? Because obviously you have your brother, right? You said here. But do you have...
Which was helpful. Like,
right, totally.
We knew someone here.
Yeah.
It wasn't like just walking into a new place completely blind. But with Claire, there was a lot of support. And when we moved, I knew that I would have to like seek it out. I would have to work much harder if I wanted to, meet other people and form a little community here. It was going to take effort. And it was, I found a couple moms groups in Georgetown just through like internet searching. But I had been off. I mean, I used Instagram, but I had been off Facebook for so many years. It just was like, that's a college thing. You don't need to use it anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't realize like how valuable I think it could have been to connect with other people or just to like crowdsource questions.
Totally.
Hey, is there a mom's group in town, or are there other moms with same age kids that we can meet up for coffee and let the kids play at a park, whatever. But now that I have created this business, I will go on Facebook and look at what moms are saying, what they're looking for, and realize that it could have been such a useful tool when we had moved here. It just, like, my brain was not functioning in that manner at that time. Right. And, I was very newly postpartum, so
yes, which I feel like is a fog in and of itself. No, yeah, definitely not. What did you do before moving here?
So since I had Claire, I had been a stay-at-home mom.
Okay,
but then before that, so after I graduated college, I graduated in communications and went into healthcare public relations. I did that for about 5 years, and I really loved the healthcare space. Worked on like medical device clients, from cardiology to diagnostic imaging, and it was all fascinating. But I just didn't love the idea of like working for other people that I wasn't like passionate about. It wasn't like returning the favor.
Yeah.
And so I had always thought of being a teacher, like ever since I was really little. And so then I went back and got my master's in early education and became a teacher for about the next 4 or 5 years. Worked from, kindergarten through pretty much 5th grade.
Nice.
And then I had Claire, and I was like, this is my calling. This is what I want to do. And after she came, I just was not ready to go back into the workforce. And luckily I didn't have to at that time. And I was just able to be with her and do what she needed. I felt very fortunate that I was able to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then what made you feel like, okay, you're ready to like start a business?
So after we moved to with Reese, I never was like, I definitely want to go back into teaching. I kind of was just like in this middle ground where like, I'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
But we moved, and within like a month or two, it kind of came to me like, hey, why is there no group that's supporting moms like in this Georgetown area.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, let's rewind back
Yeah.
to when I had Claire. So when I had Claire, even before then, we were going on a hospital tour,
Mm-hmm.
and the lady, she must have been like their head of education department at the hospital, and she told every single person on that tour, you need to go home and sign up for this postpartum group.
Mm-hmm.
It's offered through the hospital. You come with your baby within those first few months that they're born, and it is a support group for you to talk about your experiences and meet other moms. And that's exactly what I did. I went home and I signed up for it. And from that group that, lasted about 8 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I had 4 other like best mom friends.
I could totally see that.
And not everyone in your group is going to be your best friend,
Right.
but you're going to start connecting with people because you start meeting up with them outside of your class,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's at the park, for drinks, for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who keep showing up to the same events, you decide, okay, well, these are my people
Yeah.
and these are our kids, and we're going to form a group. And, even though a couple of us have moved away, we still have like our text thread from
Mm-hmm.
those initial days. And when we all are in town together, we still get the kids together. And it's like 5 years later, it's still going strong, which
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. And
Yeah.
so there was nothing like that or that
Mm-hmm.
I could find here in the Georgetown area. And so very soon after I had my son, it was like, this is what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to create this sort of group for moms to connect with one another, to share their experiences, to make them feel like I'm not the only one going through this alone. I'm not the only one up at 1 a.m., tired as could be, ordering whatever I need off Amazon
Mm-hmm.
because, hey, the baby needs to feed. And to build those relationships for them.
Yeah.
But I had a newborn, and unlike you, who just decided to jump in as like a brand new mom, which I'm just like mind blown by. It's taken me 2.5 years to get it together
Yeah.
because, my daughter's been in preschool, but my son, he's not needy by any means, but he's been more needy than my daughter was.
Uh-huh.
And now that he's in preschool 2 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
I've got about 2 hours a week to
Yeah.
to work on this endeavor.
Yeah, I know we chatted earlier about how I'm home from like 8:45 to 5:15 alone. So that's like part of what sparked this, because it was like
Yeah,
I like created my own support group, I guess, where I just talk to individuals
I
and
love.
then put it out in the public because I was losing my mind, like here alone with just a baby and no one to
Right.
talk to.
You need something to do or to like pull you out of the house,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is part of the reason for creating this. I think, when you have a newborn and in those very early days,
Yeah.
yes, you can go for a walk, but you need that social interaction
Yeah.
and like just to hear from other people,
Yes.
that, you're not going through this alone.
Yeah.
Because I think, not for everyone, but some people, it could kind of like spiral and
Mm-hmm.
you want to prevent that.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that, so I had my best friend had a baby, just happened to. We didn't plan this at all, obviously. I didn't think I was going to get pregnant, but we had a baby around the same time, like literally, actually, around the same time is wrong. We had like babies around like at the exact same time. She had hers the day before I had mine.
Oh my gosh.
So having her, like, literally, we would text each other at all hours of the
Yes.
night when we were up. And so that was really, really nice. And then
So I didn't feel like I was misunderstood by like other moms who were at different stages because I had that friend kind of walking through it with me. But that I did need like other moms and social interactions and even moms at like different stages to be like, okay, they'll grow out of this eventually, or this is where we're at now, which was really nice. But I do think that you do need at least one person in that exact same stage as you, because that's so important.
Balance you out. And,
yes.
Right.
And to relate to, because there's so much that goes on in the early days that I feel like even now, like, I mean, I'm 6 months in that I even like forget about,
You totally do. People are like, oh, I had friends who just had a baby. I'll be fine. Like, I don't, but there definitely is value in having people around you that are going through it like at the exact same time.
Yes.
Because 6 months down the road, you do forget. Like, you weren't sleeping. No one was sleeping. Right. You don't really know what was going on.
Right. And like seeing those timestamps, like I would she would text me at like, let's say midnight, and then I would text her at like 2, and then she would text me back at like 3:30. And just seeing those timestamps, like I'm not the only one not sleeping. Like there's somebody else out there.
There are people out there for sure.
Yeah. Totally. And it was just really nice to have that support. So so I think that's so important, just to kind of have people in your same age range kind of going through it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So do you want to talk about your birth stories a little bit? I love talking birth stories. I love listening to birth stories, so I always ask about birth.
I'll tell you about Claire.
Okay.
So going into, love to do natural birth, like see what my body can do.
Mm-hmm. Like no medication?
Right, without medication. A lot of my family, and I was like, well, they're really these strong women. Like, if they can do it, like, I can do it. Why not?
Yeah.
So, let's see. 41 weeks comes, and she's just like,
oh gosh,
chilling. Doesn't want to come.
Yeah.
So, I think it was, So I get induced at 41 weeks, and we go in, or like, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, and they induce me. Like, whatever the medication is that they give me.
Cytotec or Pitocin?
Well, they didn't, I don't think the Pitocin started. They started that the next morning.
So they started like the cervix softening medication.
Yeah. So, throughout my husband's like snoring away on the cot.
For real. I know.
But at least he slept. So then the next morning, the doctor comes in and checks to see like if I'm dilated. It wasn't that far along. So then they start the Pitocin slowly. I think so they put in, if I'm remembering this, like a balloon.
Okay.
And the Pitocin starts. That's super uncomfortable. I still, I'm just like, let's see how far I can take this.
Yeah.
They check me at like noon. By now we're like almost to 24 hours since.
Gosh. Yeah.
Just, and yes, it is getting not that into it.
Yeah.
Trying to take take the pain, relax to see if like that would help things progress. My daughter, because I had been up at this point for off and on, like I had slept a little bit on and off for the past 24 hours, but not a lot. They were like, you need some rest, see if your body relaxes, if you progress anymore. Didn't really help. My body did not want to move past 6 centimeters.
Really? Wow.
No. And part of me feels like my body just, like, if your body's not ready, you can't necessarily like force it.
Yeah.
So then we ended up going in, like I had the epidural, going in for a C-section around, I don't know, 4:30 or 5 the next morning. And at that point I was just like, yes, I've been here for 36 hours.
Yeah.
Like, just get the baby out.
Totally.
Healthy, because they had to turn the Pitocin down because it like started, like raising her heart rate.
Yeah.
Like that. And after that long, you're just like,
please get this baby out of me.
Come on.
Totally. Did you end up doing a VBAC with Reese, or did he come by C-section as well?
by C-section. Once he was measuring way bigger than my daughter was, and all the measurements, they're like 100% stomach, head, weight. I was like, yep, we're just gonna sign up for the C-section
Totally.
here.
Plus, I feel like knowing what you went through the first time with your whole labor, like
Oh my
if you
gosh.
could avoid all of that and just
Well, it wasn't just the labor. Being induced, and like my body still had to go through labor, and so then the recovery
yeah,
of that labor plus the pain of the C-section
yeah,
was so much greater than when with Reese,
right,
I just like walked in and
yeah,
they did the C-section and it was done.
yeah,
But funny, like with my daughter, when they were having the C-section, you know, you can't like videotape it or anything.
right.
But my husband's like, they're telling him you might want to stay like behind the screen, and they're telling him, okay, we're gonna pull the baby out now, and he's like up above, like
Oh my
taking
gosh.
pictures, like watching the entire thing. And we actually, you know, because the pictures, you can put them like in live mode, so you can actually see like my daughter being pulled out. It
Oh my
took
gosh,
me
that's so cool.
a couple months to be like comfortable seeing them, but he was just like enthralled with it. And the doctor was talking about after, he's like, yeah, your husband may be going back to medical school. Never did, but
That's funny.
yeah, no, he loved it.
That's so cool. My husband was like fighting for his life by the time she came.
Yeah.
So I think I have pictures like after she was born like on me, but nothing of like during the labor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's so cool that he was like so into it. Yeah.
He was very into it. And yeah, at that point, you know, you're just like, get the baby out. I want to eat them. They've been in there for 9 months. Like,
totally.
It's been long enough.
Totally. Yeah. They induced me at 39 weeks. I can't imagine waiting 2 more weeks and then going through that whole process. That's just.
Yeah. First, I think, you know, a lot of the women in my family have gone past their due date. It was kind of normal. So I'm like, my body probably just another few days would have made a difference or not. I like not lose sleep over it.
Yeah, no, it's so hard to predict anything with birth. For us, because for IVF, they said that after 40 weeks, there's more chance of a stillbirth. So I was like, okay, I'm not messing with that. Like, 39 weeks, we'll do an induction. And then when we did go in, her heart rate was dropping from the medication. They only put me on Cytotec at first. Once they put in the second dose of Cytotec, though, my body just kind of like knew what to do and it started laboring. So I was lucky in that sense, because I can't imagine doing all of that and then still having to go in for a C-section. That's tough.
It was just like, I felt somewhat, when I went in for the stress test, one of the nurses talked about that. You know, that like her friend had recently gone to 41 weeks and was induced and then still had to have a C-section. And so it was like in my mind, like, that's going to probably be me.
Yeah. Oh,
but you never like plan for that.
No,
you think that it's going to go how it should.
Yeah.
But it never does.
Yeah. I feel like I was expecting the worst. I don't know why. But I was really just like expecting the worst. And like when they gave me the first dose of Cytotec, my nurse started talking to me about C-section because her heart rate kept dropping and they couldn't figure out why. And she's like, let me just call the doctor and see what the doctor wants to do. And the doctor said, just give her another dose of Cytotec and see how the baby responds. And then we'll talk about a C-section in the morning. And she responded well. So thankfully that's what ended up happening. But like I was totally like, all right, I think I'm just going to end up having a C-section.
Right.
It's just I feel like that's the way you have to go into birth, though, like just expecting the worst, because
and you can like prepare as much as you want for like what you want, but so much is kind of out of our hands.
I refuse to do a birth plan. I haven't talked about this. I refuse to do a birth plan for that reason, because I knew if I had a birth plan and it didn't go according to plan, I would lose my mind. But if I didn't have a birth plan and it just, whatever happened, happened.
It's probably true. Like I had my birth plan like written up in a binder. And Like, might as well just have chucked it out the window on the way
No,
to
but
the
like
hospital.
that's me. Like I usually need to be like, okay, this is what I need to happen and like
Yeah.
list it out and like be perfect.
Right.
And
It's like the teacher planning for the day, like
totally,
how it's gonna go.
totally. And if it doesn't go to plan, I lose it. I'm like, oh wait, no. So that's why I was like, I can't have a plan because if I go in with a plan, I will lose it.
And I'm not like a super type A
Me either.
person,
Yeah.
but I like having an idea of
Exactly.
like how things are gonna go.
Exactly.
I'm fine with it changing.
Right.
My husband might disagree on
Yeah.
that. Just depends how much time I have.
Totally. And I feel like I wouldn't be fine with it changing during birth just because it's like there's so many factors
Yeah, you know
that
you can control everything.
Yeah. So I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to give all control to, which I mean, I know is like so giving like the hospital and the doctor and everyone all the control and not really just asking. I mean, I like all the questions. I'm making sure that every I is dotted, T's crossed. But for
Right.
labor and delivery, I was like, whatever you guys think, just get us out of here alive. That's it.
Right.
That's all I'm asking.
Give me a healthy baby. That's all that matters. Right. Especially like after probably all that you had gone through.
Yes.
In like conceiving your baby and everything. You're just like, bring her to me, make her safe, healthy.
Yes. And you're totally right. That's true because I feel like I did have I tried to have a lot of control during the IVF process and that didn't go the way I wanted it to. And I had everything like listed out and all of my concerns and all of this and all of that and I got all my questions answered and you know the doctors were pretty certain about like everything but again nothing went to plan no matter what we did.
Right.
So at that point I was like I'm throwing it all out the window.
Yeah, exactly. And it worked out.
And it worked out. It did work out. Can you have so Claire's 5 and
Claire's 5.
It's 2.5?
Reese is 2.5. Yeah.
What is your favorite stage so far?
I think it starts around 18 months.
Okay.
And this is for both of them.
Okay.
Just like my favorite age in general is from about 18 months to 2.5, 3.
Okay. Why 18 months?
They start to become more independent.
Okay.
I mean, starting at around 6 months, like I remember it just clicking like, okay, things are getting better. Things are starting to get a little bit easier. Like they're sleeping, whether or not they're sleeping at night, like their naps were getting a little more consolidated. I could start having a bit more of a life. But, and then it just like kept progressing, you know, like with all their developments and walking. But then like around 18 months, at least with my kids, they were pretty verbal and like starting to just really communicate their needs. Their little personalities were starting to develop and they really just become like so much more fun and like capable of doing things.
Yeah.
And they're just like so cute at that age.
Yeah.
You know, you just like want to like hug and squish them all the time.
Yeah.
And I still do, but like just like peak toddler. And I think, you know, some people might disagree with like, oh, well, you're getting into like the terrible twos. And for me, I think I was lucky because both of my kids could communicate very well, that so many of the tantrums that happen at 2 are because they can't like communicate their needs. They're still working on like their words. And my daughter was like, was pretty mellow and happy, like go with the flow. My son definitely has a stronger personality, and if he does not get his way, would love to throw a tantrum. But he would just like, in terms of communicating what he wanted, even if he didn't have the right words, like he would just push through it and figure it out. Not shy at all. So I just, they're becoming so capable and independent, and like
Yeah.
you really start to see their personalities develop, how they're starting to interact with
Uh-huh.
friends and others around them. So I would, and then like until 2.5, 3, it's still fun at 4 and 5. I think just part of it that makes it so sweet is that like they're still little, um, at 2 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Definitely.
once they're 4 and 5, you just start seeing they like lose that like toddler baby face and
Uh-huh.
looking older. And so part of
Yeah.
it, I think, is that they just still look little
Yeah.
at age too.
Totally. Which is so funny because if you think about like back when you were a teacher, I don't know about you, but for me, definitely kindergartners were like babies.
They're
Right? Like
tiny.
they're
They're
so little.
tiny. Before you have your own, like, and I think about that, like looking at my daughter, I'm like, look, she looks huge.
Exactly.
But did I, if I had seen her in a kindergarten lineup, what would I have thought?
Yeah.
Yes, they were
Yeah.
like babies.
The babies, for sure. I taught 5th grade. And so like anything lower than 5th grade, I was like, oh my God, they're so little.
Totally. My sweet spot was like 2nd and 3rd grade.
Okay.
I love that. But also kindergarten, 1st grade, that was really fun when I was doing like student teaching and
Yeah, I did student teaching in
interacting.
kindergarten as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you feel like you did differently the second time around versus the first time around? Like,
what did I do differently? I mean, it was a whole different environment. Just because, with my daughter, I feel like I had more support. It was when my son was born, we were much more on the go.
okay.
Just, having to pick. She started preschool 2 days a week
Okay.
right after he was born. So, when you have 2 children or more, like you just have to be a little more flexible and some people I'm sure are like that from the beginning, but with my daughter, I was like, these are her exact bedtimes. And she was so routine. Like she'd wake up to the minute, like at the same time.
Really? Wow.
Like in the morning, and had those wake windows down. Like once we got into the routine, neither of them were good. Like nighttime sleep took a while, especially for my son. My daughter was much more open to like when we started sleep training her. She was like, yeah, okay, this is what we're doing now. And he wanted to fight it completely. So I think I had to just give myself grace that things were going to happen a little more on his timeline and not like force something to happen, like sleep training, with food. He's been much pickier than my daughter was.
Okay.
She laid the groundwork for a very easy baby.
Okay.
And so there was just like new learning experiences when I had my son, obviously, as there's going to be.
Yeah.
But, juggling 2 kids, plus he was just a little fussier and more particular, I would say, than my daughter was. But luckily, my daughter's was just like the best big sister and most loving at the beginning. There was never any like feelings of sibling rivalry. She just wanted to be there and like smother him and hug.
Yeah.
I was very lucky in that sense. And there were, definitely a lot of emotions from everyone.
Right.
Through the adjustment, but there was never like, I don't want to be around my brother or like that type of adjustment period.
Do you feel like it was harder for going from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2?
I think 1 to 2 was I don't know. It's so different. Like that first one just rocks you because you have no clue what to expect. I mean, people can give you all the advice in the world, but they don't know your child. They don't know what is going to work for your child. And all the advice is like suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what is supposed to work,
Right.
but you know, your child has its own like DNA and makeup and
Yeah.
how it responds to different situations. And so all of those instances are going to be different, you know, based on who your child is. And you have to take the time to figure that out. And I think luckily, when it is your first child, you do have the time in those early days and weeks to kind of like explore one another and sleep as long as you need. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no one has put you on a time schedule.
Right.
I remember like falling back asleep and waking up at 10, 11 in the morning. But I also remember like not knowing how to shower with the baby. I mean, like, how do I, you know, like,
Yeah.
what do I do with her? I need to shower. Like, I've been
Yeah.
sweating profusely all night and I smell like I just ran a marathon.
Totally.
Like, your hormones are all over the place. And so there's a lot of just figuring out like little basic things like, did I brush my teeth today?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it slowly happens, but it's just like a complete 180 from your life before kids.
Yeah.
And at least with your second one, you have an idea of what to expect, because of your 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're not going to have the same child.
Mm-hmm.
They may be similar, but like you still have to figure out who that child is. And so, yeah, I think the first one
Yeah.
is hard because of that, like,
Yeah. There's a huge learning curve for
complete
sure. Yeah.
shock.
Yeah.
But, you know, juggling too, and that going from 1 to 2 is a lot.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
You just don't have that same downtime and rest.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so thankful that, like, because I was scheduled for a C-section, my body didn't like go through 36 hours of labor.
Yeah.
I was down, I feel like, for like 2 to 3 weeks with my daughter, slowly like doing walks and that sort of thing. But with my son, it was like, yeah, I felt good. And like,
Yeah.
the medications, combinations, I was never on narcotics after the C-section with him, which a lot of people were surprised by, but just like they were figuring out some new combination here and it was amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
So I was like pretty functional.
Yeah.
You know, as much as you can be, and it was also August. I had him August 3rd. So like the middle of summer. So you're not going a lot of places in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
But you know, I still wanted to, and I wanted to meet new people.
Yeah.
Luckily I ended up starting to meet people because my daughter was in preschool and we would be going in and dropping off, and started to go to birthday parties like half of the year.
Okay.
But it took a while.
Yeah.
And not having like that same support system was hard, even though I think I was putting myself out there. I was trying to like go to mom groups, but it takes a while. I think one of the things with mom groups a lot of times is that they're like toddler based a lot of time.
Yeah.
You're doing activities with your toddler, and so you might have another new mom that's just had a baby, but you may just be like chasing toddlers around and you can't actually connect with other moms who are in that same stage of life.
Right.
So we were doing that and I was meeting some nice people, but I never was like actually having deep conversations about what we were going through together. And I think shared experiences is like really what brings people together.
Totally.
Which was why my brain was starting to think like, hey, Georgetown, surrounding areas, like it's growing. People
Yeah.
aren't going to stop having babies.
Yep.
And like, I think something like meeting mama could be very valuable.
Totally. Did you have any postpartum, would you say?
No, I was very lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, there were struggles, of course,
Mhm.
and especially with the sleep, just like, why? With my son, I remember him, go down for bed, but then waking up at 11 or 12 and just like screaming, and you can't soothe them
Mhm.
at all. They don't want to feed. They're like completely worked up, and you're just like, what is going on?
Right.
What can I do? And with my daughter, there was some of that. I don't know at what point. It was around 2 months, maybe. And my husband had a couple friends over they came over for dinner. Everything was fine. And like when it came to her bedtime, it was around like 7:38. She would feed, but I couldn't put her down. She was screaming.
Yeah.
And it like just kept going on. And you're just like at a loss. Like, what can I
Yeah.
do?
And
Of
you're like,
course,
is there something wrong with you? And you start to like
yeah,
panic for sure.
yeah, like what else can I be doing? And of course, you're just kind of like, I'm someone that I just want to like figure it out. And we had guests over. I didn't want to be like interrupting them. But then on the other hand, like I needed my husband, but I
Right.
wasn't like, trying to pull him away from other
Yeah.
people at our house.
Yeah.
But I think that communication really is important. And like in hindsight, I probably should have pulled him in earlier to just like give me a break to kind of regroup. But we had to figure out, because then it started happening every day, like exactly at 8 o'clock.
We had that same thing happen around that time, and I was like, not okay. I was
And
just
like it's the witching hour, like
yes.
but she would freak out. She was great at breastfeeding. She would refuse the breast, and I think it was just like maybe my letdown wasn't fast enough or something weird. But then by giving her a bottle just that one time during the
Mhm.
day, she would be completely fine,
Okay.
and we could like put her to bed. But it was just like such a weird thing that you have to work through
Yeah.
and figure out.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8 o'clock on the dot,
Yeah.
no matter where we were. And like
Yeah.
it'd be coming, and I would tell people like, okay, here's the bottle. Like if you're holding her, you be ready. She's gonna like start to freak out, and
Yeah.
people look at the clock and like there it was.
Oof, you just took me back. Yeah. It was those days were tough. And like she would refuse the bottle. She would like nothing would work.
No.
We used to take her out on the balcony because it was a little colder
Mm-hmm.
then and try to like sometimes that would work. But it was that was oof. Because they freak out and you're like, what is wrong? Am I missing something?
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was happening later in the evening with my son, but it was like the same thing.
Yeah.
Just meltdown city, and there's not a lot you can do
No.
but get through it, and I guess eventually they go to sleep.
Yeah. And then they grow out of it. And they grow out of it pretty quickly.
They do. But when you're in it, like as with any stage,
Mm-hmm.
you're in it and it's a lot.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they're like, it happens when they're so little and fragile that you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to be missing something.
Right. Well, and they're just like adjusting to their body, and
Right.
they haven't been in it that long, and something's already changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure that doesn't help.
Totally. Did you feel like it was easier with your son because you knew like, okay, this happens and we get through it?
Yes and no. I think it was like you kind of know like some of the milestones that are going to happen, but then they happen differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like relearning it again and again.
Totally. Yeah, I can see that.
Like I remember with my daughter, she was always like very alert, just like taking in her surroundings.
Mhm.
And then when we hit that like 3 to 4 month sleep regression, she had been sleeping through the night, like 12 hours, right around, I don't know, 3 to 4 months. She started waking up like every
Yeah.
few hours again.
Yeah.
And she would be feeding every time she woke up. And then during the day, she would hardly feed at all.
Yes,
Or
I'm
only
there
for
right
like,
now at 6 months. I'm like, I need to switch this.
yeah. And she would feed for like 2 minutes on one side, then switch to the other side for 2 minutes and be like, yeah, that's good. But then because she had fed so little during the day, they're hungry at night, which
Yes.
completely makes sense. And I'm like reading up on everything I can at every stage to try and solve my problems.
Yeah.
And some people might just be a little more relaxed about it than I was. I was trying to
How
get
did
her
you
to
fix that
sleep
issue?
so I
Because
could
yeah,
get back
how
to
did you
sleep.
fix that issue? Because literally she was sleeping amazing. And she's still, I mean, she's not a bad sleeper by any
Right.
means because I just give her that bottle like 3 times a night-ish and then
Yeah.
she'll go back to sleep.
But
But
you're
it's
still
like
interrupting your sleep.
exactly. And you were sleeping. Like
Yes, I know. That's the hardest part. They were
yeah.
sleeping.
Yeah.
So, the other thing was hard because her birth weight was great, and like
Mhm.
the first few months was great because
Yeah.
of her feeding, but then it started declining as
Okay.
she was like feeding less. So then, there's like that anxiety, and the
Yeah.
doctor saying, okay, can you come back in like every week or every couple weeks to monitor her weight? And that's just like another layer of stress of like, am I producing enough milk? Is she not getting enough? And it's like that was probably the hardest few months with my
Mhm.
daughter
Mhm.
because I wasn't sure if she was getting enough food. But then right around 6 months, I remember I think it was her 6 month appointment, and I was asking the doctor about like, is it okay, to try and sleep train her? I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like that if I was doing that, he wasn't afraid like that it would affect her weight in
Right.
any way, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Because they were monitoring her weight and everything. So he was like, that's personal decision. If you want to try sleep training, go for it. So that's what I did, and it worked with my daughter, not my son.
Okay. How did you
Uh,
sleep train?
so I think at each waking, every time she woke up, well, first I had to, at that point, I think I had to like not be feeding her to sleep.
Mhm. Okay.
So I had to make sure I wasn't feeding her to sleep to get her to like fall asleep on her own. And I had been practicing that with the naps, getting her to fall asleep kind of independently. I was following the like, taking care of
Mhm.
babies model, like printed out the sheets, like to a
Yeah.
T. But she was within a couple nights, like falling asleep, no problem. I think because she had kind of gotten used to her room. I had to move her at 6 months out of our room too.
Okay. Yeah. She's
So
still in
I
our
had
room
had
too.
her in our room for six
Yeah.
months total, because I'm like, if you're waking up
Exactly.
every few hours, like I'm not going hiking across the hall to your room.
Totally.
Not much of a hike, but still,
Yeah.
I did not want to be getting up if it was like multiple times a night.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and then I was like, okay, now I know you're old enough, because they say wait till they're about 6 months to
Mhm.
start sleep training. So at 6 months, I was like, okay, your room for bed. And so it took a couple nights of like adjusting to sleep, but we had been doing naps in her room. And then I think just with every feeding that she woke up for at night, I started decreasing the time
Okay.
so that it was maybe, if we started with 10 minutes, every night was like, okay, then 9, 8, 7. And at a point, you're like, okay, well, if I'm only feeding you for like 1 or 2 minutes, do you really need this?
Right.
And over time, then like as soon as I started cutting her feedings at night, she immediately started eating so much better in the day.
Okay.
And we may have also gotten past that point where she was like just super distracted by everything during the day.
Mhm.
That was part of it. Like anytime I went to feed her during the day, we'd have to like go in a dark corner so that she wasn't just like, oh, what's that bird? Or like
Yeah.
dog barking across the street. But it worked, and she started feeding again great during the day. Now with my son, that did not happen at all. And he, I think, is just so stubborn and was like, you are not leaving me
Oh.
in my room.
Yeah.
Like, I had moved him in his room much earlier than with my daughter because he was just growing out of the bassinet
Uh-huh.
like a rapid speed. And so he probably only lasted a couple months in our bedroom, but he was still waking up. And at that point I was like, okay, well, I gotta hike down the hallway
Yeah.
to go take care of you. But he had wanted nothing to do with sleep training and would just like scream. So that, yeah, I just kind of had to give in and be like, I don't want to hear your screaming for hours on end.
Yeah.
Because he is loud. Like he is very loud. And we went back home for a trip
Uh-huh.
around 8 months. And then a lot of times, like, I think we just timed it right when we got back. He like took a car nap on the way home from the airport, stayed up till maybe like 10 or so, and then actually slept the whole night through
Nice.
after that trip. And it just like got his body in the rhythm.
Nice.
There were there have been many periods with him where he's had sleep regressions and woken up, once or twice in the night, but it was like a few days manageable.
Mm-hmm.
He is still much harder to put down to bed than my daughter. And we were back home for a few weeks last summer, and he would not fall asleep on his own the entire 3 weeks. He would have to be all the way on top of me. Like it would take, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
He would just be laying on top of me until he fell asleep. And then I slowly scoot him to the side and move him to the crib. And that was around 2. And then at 2.5, he hit another regression, and we're still dealing with.
Oh gosh.
I think for him, it's like the anxiety of being by himself. He wants the comfort of either being with me and now we've moved him out of his crib, but we still have the mattress, and we've moved that into his sister's room so that at least he's like with his sister.
Okay.
And it works as long as he's tired.
Okay.
But we're also in the process of dropping his nap.
Okay.
And it's just making me realize like every time you drop a nap, it's such an adjustment.
Yeah.
That last one, if they're not napping throughout the whole day, like we're on the go all the time.
Yeah.
And he's falling asleep in the car. Even for like 5 or 10 minutes, it's amazing how it just like reboots their system.
Yeah.
And then he wants to be up till 10:30.
Yeah.
Like they were running back and forth 10 o'clock last night.
Oh
like,
my gosh. You're like, go to bed.
Yes. Like I want to go to bed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So we're coming up to like an hour. Is there anything else you want to add to the episode?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, it's just been like so fun talking about kids, and I love that I'm finally at a place where I can start to help moms connect. And I think one thing I do want to say is the birth community in and around Austin, like as I start interacting with other like birth workers, whether they're chiropractors or doulas, PTs, a lot of like the support systems that go into a birth or prenatal, postpartum, there are so many resources.
Totally.
And that, like, not only do I want to create this community for moms, but I want to be a place where they can find the resources that they need and just like have it be a one-stop shop for moms to connect, to find what the resources they need. And also, I think one thing that we didn't really get into was these classes that I do want to start developing after I build up the community. And the classes, in essence, it would be like a facilitated postpartum group where each cohort of moms would come and meet for 8 weeks, and each week would be a different topic that we would dive into and have like more in-depth conversations about. So say we start our class off by talking about everyone's birth stories, like we went into, and you just get to hear about all the different experiences and start bonding over, what your body has gone through, what you're dealing with. And then each week we would move into a different topic, and I would be able to provide some information to the moms as like a baseline. Here's what's a normal range. I'm not saying everyone is going to fall into this, but if you are so far from what is considered normal, well then, and if you're feeling like you want support in this area, okay, here are 3 or 4 resources or people that you can like reach out to and get support in that area. So whether it's sleep or infant feeding, toddler, or as they move into like solids. And then I think just like those basic requirements for your body during postpartum, relationships with family, friends, how they change, and like your relationship with your partner and the different ways that you need to support each other and communication. I would love to provide some sort of like mommy and me yoga or exercise class. I have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, I love that.
But that's kind of the idea of, if you were to go through a facilitated postpartum group with me, what, give moms an idea of what it would look like, how I would run the class. And then obviously I would encourage the moms to meet up on their own in between classes to like get to know each other on another level.
Totally.
And I'm trying to provide some of those opportunities as I build the community.
Yeah.
But then give them like the encouragement to do it on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where can everyone find you, and where can everyone kind of join the community that you're building?
Yeah. So on my website it has all the information, and that is just meetingmama.com.
Okay.
And Instagram is probably my main form of communication for upcoming events, and that's Meeting Mama GTX for Georgetown. All one word. And then I do have a Facebook page, which I'll post anything from Instagram over to that, and that's just Meeting Mama. There's no GTX on Facebook. But yeah, I think those are the main forms, and I just, it's not just limited to Georgetown. It's all the surrounding communities, because we're not that, we're close to Austin, but there's a lot of areas that it's easier to get to Georgetown.
Totally.
And there's just there's so much to do here too. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for being on. I will link your website in the show notes for anyone that's kind of looking for you, looking for community. Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's podcast. It was so nice to have a mama working on community here because we know how important that is. If you're new to the podcast, thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe it. And if you're returning to the podcast, thank you so much for returning. Please comment and take this week's poll. And we will see you next Thursday.